Welcome dear friends to my video lecture on NET education or TRB education unit 1 part B. As I already told you, there are 4 parts already given part A. Now I am going to give you part B. In this we are going to have quite a lot of questions and also critical questions, very important, because especially for TRB people, critical questions are very important. How analytical, synthetic, problem solving, evaluative questions will be asked within the topics, that we must know. So I have given nice models here. Please listen to me. In all the areas, I will be giving higher order questions along with it. Of course, there are also very good questions. They will be asked, no doubt about it. But especially for TRB, they will be asking something differently. For that reason, I am giving a particular section for you. Of course, that will be helpful for NET also. Nowadays, NET exam also is asking critical questions. Anyway, I am giving you all types of questions. Memory based, understanding based, analytical, analysis based, synthesis based, problem solving based questions. I am just evaluation based questions I am giving. So please go through it nicely. At least give some time so that you are able to understand everything. You would have already gone through so many things. If you just go through this also, it will be very good for you. You will be able to get the mastery over the content. So let us straight away enter into the topic. Yes. Right. So, contribution of Western schools of thoughts, idealism, realism, naturalism, pragmatism, Marxism, existentialism, and the contribution to education with a special reference to information, knowledge and wisdom. What is idealism? See, most of the time I will be giving the answer as well as the explanation here. This is for the model check. I am giving other alternatives, yes. But we need not waste our time for that reason, no? Because all these things we know, only thing memory is needed. For that reason we go quickly. So, what is idealism? A philosophical view that reality is made up of ideas. Okay, that is the thing. I mean, idealism comes from ideas. So, of course, other things are there, but it belongs to other philosophical systems, the other statement. The first statement seems to be the correct one. What is idealism? A philosophical view that reality is made up of ideas. Idealism is a philosophical view that reality is made up of ideas rather than physical objects. It believes that the world and all its contents are composed of the mental constructs of our own minds. What is the main difference between idealism and realism? Idealism believes that reality is made up of ideas, whereas realism believes that reality is made up of physical objects. Of course, there would have been other alternatives, but this is the right one. I think out of 4 alternatives, this is the best one. What is the main difference between idealism and realism? Idealism believes that reality is made up of ideas, whereas realism believes that reality is made up of physical objects, material world. So the main difference between idealism and realism is that idealism believes that reality is made up of ideas, whereas realism believes that reality is made up of physical objects. What is the nature of reality according to idealism? Reality is composed of physical objects. Is it true? No. Ideas. Idea is the main thing here. So reality is composed of mental constructs of our own minds. Reality is composed of mental constructs of our own mind. That is the nature of reality according to idealism. Of course, other things are there. Laws of nature, naturalism, collective power of individuals. That is different. That realism and other things. Collective power of individual. That is even Marxism. So that way, what is the correct one? What is the nature of reality according to idealism? That is, reality is composed of mental constructs of our own minds. According to idealism, reality is composed of mental constructs of our own minds. It believes that the world and all its contents are composed of the mental constructs of our own minds and not physical objects. What is the purpose of idealism? What is the purpose of idealism? To provide a more optimistic view of reality. That's more important. There is God. We can always reach him through his attributes, truth, beauty and goodness, all these things, it talks about the purpose of life. So the purpose of idealism itself gives you more optimistic view of reality. That is the idea here, optimistic view. Because, it talks about transcendental things, going beyond one's own human capacity, the heavenly power, something like truth, beauty, goodness, the qualities of God as such. So that way the purpose of idealism is to provide a more optimistic view of reality. Idealism believes that reality is composed of ideas rather than physical objects, and this view of reality offers a more optimistic outlook on life. How does idealism philosophy in education view the role of the teacher? How does idealism philosophy in education view the role of the teacher? That is, as a mentor. Idealism philosophy in education views the role of the teacher as a mentor, meaning that the teacher should guide and encourage the student to think critically and develop their own understanding of the material. What is the concept of absolute in idealism? Absolute means only one reality, God, super consciousness, complete consciousness, the purest consciousness. Like that, when we say, that is the concept of absolute. Only one thing exists, like that. I mean, the entire world has come from one source. When we say like that, then it is called absolutism. So what is the concept of absolute in idealism? That is the belief in a singular undivided reality. The belief in a singular undivided reality. There is a universal soul, in other words. According to this idealism, there is a universal soul. So the belief in a singular undivided reality, that is the concept of absolute in idealism. The concept of the absolute is central to idealism and holds that reality is unified, undivided whole. This is in contrast to the belief in dualism, which holds that reality is composed of two separate realities, realms, physical and mental. So that is dualism. Whereas it talks about only one source, namely unified, undivided whole. So that is the concept of absolute according to idealism. What is the concept of the world mind in idealism? World mind. So a single unified source of knowledge and understanding. That is the concept of world mind in idealism. Of course, other distractions are not true. Only the fourth one will be the right one. A single unified source of knowledge and understanding. The concept of the world mind is central to idealism and holds that there is a single unified source of knowledge and understanding that binds all minds together. God binds everyone. When we say like that, it is idealism. A superpower exists and that superpower binds all the minds. When we say like that, then it becomes the world mind. Right? I hope you understood. So this concept is in contrast to dualism. Of course, I already told you, dualism consists of both physical and mental. Whereas here only mental construct we are talking about in idealism. What is the concept of transcendentalism in idealism? What is the concept of transcendentalism? That is, transcendentalism is a concept central to idealism and holds that reality is beyond the individual mind. This is in contrast to materialism, which holds that physical objects are the only reality. What is the concept of universal mind in idealism? Universal mind. That is a single unified source of knowledge and understanding. A single unified source of knowledge and understanding. The concept of the universal mind is central to idealism and holds that there is a single unified source of knowledge and understanding that binds all minds together. This concept in contrast to dualism, I already explained to you as two separate realms, physical and mental. Idealism doesn't talk about two realities. Okay, only one reality, undivided. Consciousness or God. That is the reality. Universal mind. In other words, single unified source of knowledge. That is the concept of absolutism or universal mind according to idealism. What is the idealistic view on the nature of truth? The truth is absolute and objective. That's very important. What is truth according to idealism? The truth is absolute and objective. Idealism holds that truth is absolute and objective and that it is discovered through the use of reason and the study of mental representations. This is in contrast to relativism, which holds that truth is relative and subjective. What is the main goal of naturalism philosophy? Now we are turning our attention towards naturalism philosophy. What is the main goal of naturalism philosophy? To gain knowledge of the natural world, to increase human happiness, to increase a unified society, promote religious beliefs. Which is the right one? What is the main goal of naturalism philosophy? That is to gain knowledge of the natural world. The main goal of naturalism is to gain knowledge of the natural world through observation, experimentation, and analysis. Naturalism does not promote any particular religious beliefs or seek to increase human happiness or create a unified society. Which of the following is an example of naturalism philosophy? The four examples are given, which is the right one, which belongs to naturalism philosophy. Praying to a god, naturally it is idealism. Studying the stars, of course, nature study. So then believing in miracles, so it is not naturalism, right? It is beyond one's human capacity. Creating art, that is also not there. Okay, so studying the arts, studying the stars, naturalism is a philosophical viewpoint that holds there is only one reality, which is the natural world. An example of this philosophy is studying the stars, which involves observing and analyzing their movements and composition. Praying to a god, believing in miracles, and creating art are not examples of naturalism. What does naturalism philosophy believe about the concept of truth? According to them, truth is materialistic. It belongs to the realm of things. According to naturalism philosophy, what is the concept of truth? It is materialism. Truth is materialistic. According to naturalism, the only truth is materialistic. This means that everything in the universe is composed of matter and energy, and that all life is interrelated. Naturalism does not believe that truth is subjective, absolute, or relative. How does naturalism philosophy view the concept of morality? How does naturalism philosophy view the concept of morality, that is, as subjective? Naturalism does not believe in absolute or relative morality, but rather views morality as subjective. This means that what is moral for one person may not be moral for another, and that morality is based on individual beliefs and values. Naturalism does not view morality as materialistic. Yes. So, what are the three main goals of naturalism in education? What are the three main goals of naturalism? That is, to develop the intellect, to provide basic skills, and to increase student achievement. Of course, different alternatives are given, but that will belong to other philosophical systems. But we have to understand the nature of naturalism. For that reason, if you analyze the characteristics of naturalism, this is the right answer. What are the three main goals of naturalism? That is, to develop the intellect, to provide basic skills, and to increase student achievement. The three main goals of naturalism are to develop the intellect, to provide basic skills, and to increase student achievement. Naturalism emphasizes the importance of intellectual development while also recognizing the need to provide students with the skills they need to succeed in life. Who is considered the founder of pragmatism? He is William James. William James is considered to be the founder of pragmatism. William James is considered the founder of pragmatism, which he developed in the late 19th century. He was an American philosopher and psychologist who believed in the idea that truth can be determined by examining the practical consequences and applications of ideas or beliefs. So this is, William James. Pragmatism has been propounded by William James. The 19th century is an American philosophy. What is the opposite of pragmatism? Direct opposite to pragmatism is idealism. Idealism is the opposite of pragmatism. Idealism is a philosophy that holds that reality is based on ideas and that a perfect ideal form exists in an ideal realm. Pragmatism, on the other hand, holds that truth is relative to the situation and can be determined by examining the practical consequences and applications of ideas or beliefs. So this is what it talks, idealism. So idealism and philosophy, what is the difference? Idealism is a philosophy that holds that reality is based on the ideas, of course. Whereas pragmatism says truth is relative to the situation and can be determined by examining the practical consequences. So whatever is helpful, whatever is good, you take it. Idealism will say, no, this is the ideal thing, by all means you should take it. Pragmatism will say, according to the circumstances, one should decide, and whatever is helpful at that particular moment, you give value to that. That is the idea of pragmatism. That way they are opposed to each other. What is the most important aspect of pragmatism? That is experience. The most important aspect of pragmatism is experience. Pragmatists believe that the truth of any idea or belief can be determined by examining the practical consequences and applications of it. This means that knowledge is based on our experience of the world. What is the goal of pragmatism? To improve our lives. The goal of pragmatism is to improve our lives. Pragmatists believe that the truth of any idea or belief can be determined by examining the practical consequences and applications of it. This means that knowledge will be used to improve our lives by solving practical problems in the world. How does pragmatism view the concept of truth? According to pragmatism, truth is relative and situational. According to the circumstances, situations, truth has to be taken. That is the idea here. So pragmatism is a philosophy that holds that truth of any idea or belief is determined by its practical consequences and applications. This means that truth is relative to the situation and can change depending on the context. What is the key component of pragmatism? That is experimentation. Experimentation is a key component of pragmatism. Pragmatists believe that the truth of any idea or belief can be determined by examining the practical consequences and applications of it. This means that knowledge is gained through experimentation and observation in the real world. What is the main concept of pragmatism philosophy? What is the main concept? That is that knowledge is based on experience. That is the main concept of pragmatism philosophy, experience. Pragmatism philosophy states that knowledge is based on experience and is constantly evolving, changing, based on the changing circumstances. It suggests that knowledge must be tested and evaluated in order to determine its validity and usefulness. According to pragmatism philosophy, how do we determine the truth? Through our senses. According to pragmatism philosophy, how do we determine the truth? Through our senses. Pragmatists believe that truth is determined through our senses and our ability to observe and interact with the world around us. They argue that truth is not absolute and can change depending on the situation. What is the difference between pragmatism philosophy and idealism? What is the difference actually? This is an understanding question or analytical question. Pragmatism is focused on the practical application of knowledge, while idealism is focused on abstract theories, difficult theories. From the mindful theories, in other words, abstract theories, difficult theories that come out of one's mind. So pragmatism is focused on the practical application of knowledge, while idealism is focused on the abstract theories or concepts that cannot be tested in the real world. You understand this one? The abstract theories or concepts cannot be tested in the real world. So it talks about truth, beauty, goodness. Do they really exist up above the sky? It's only understanding some sort of faith, okay? But can you prove that? Idealism says there is God, truth, beauty, goodness. This is out of one's faith we believe in it. But can anybody prove that? That is a problem. So the pragmatism seeks to find solutions to problems in the here and now, while idealism is focused on a more theoretical approach to problem solving. What is the main difference between pragmatism and realism? So pragmatism and realism. So according to the definitions, you must understand this. So pragmatism is focused on the immediate present. Realism is focused on the long term, future perhaps. So I think you must understand such kind of things very carefully. by going through the characteristics of different philosophies. Pragmatism is focused on the immediate present, while realism is focused on the long term. Pragmatism is focused on the practical application of knowledge, while realism is focused on abstract theories or concepts that cannot be tested in the real world. Pragmatism seeks to find solutions to problems in the here and now, while realism is focused on a more theoretical approach to problem solving. Of course, it is much closer to idealism. Realism is much closer to idealism. That way you have to understand. Okay. What is the core value of pragmatism philosophy? Core value, important value, that is social utility. Pragmatism talks about social utility, usefulness, social usefulness. Anything that is helpful, you take it. Anything that is useful, you take it. Other things you discard. No? That is the idea, given by pragmatism. Pragmatism is a philosophical system that emphasizes practical results over theoretical ideas. Its core value is that usefulness, workability, practicality of ideas, policies and actions are the primary determinants of their merit. Therefore, the value of social utility is at the core of pragmatism philosophy. What is the origin of pragmatism philosophy? American. It comes from America. Pragmatism was initially developed in the United States in the late 19th century by Charles Sanders Peirce, William James and John Dewey. It was then adopted by other philosophers from around the world. What is an example of pragmatism philosophy in education? Out of the four, which example you will take for pragmatism philosophy? Memorizing facts, maybe idealism. Learning a foreign language, very much useful. No? In order to live in this world in a prosperous manner, we need different languages. So that way it can be a pragmatism philosophy. It belongs to pragmatism philosophy, that is learning a foreign language. Of course, debating philosophical issues, analyzing literature, all these things don't come here. But example of pragmatism here is that learning a foreign language. Learning a foreign language is an example of pragmatism philosophy in education. This philosophy emphasizes the importance of learning useful skills that can be applied to everyday life. Learning a foreign language is a practical skill that can have real world applications, such as being able to communicate with other people in different countries. What is an example of an activity that is not in line with the pragmatism philosophy in education? What is the example of an activity that is not in line with the pragmatism philosophy? Learning to drive a car, memorizing facts, debating philosophical issues, analyzing literature. Say example of an activity that is not in line with the pragmatism philosophy. That is debating philosophical issues. Of course, certainly it will not do that. Whatever is helpful, useful to lead this earthly life, it will talk about. So debating philosophical issues is idealism. That comes under idealism. So debating philosophical issues is an example of an activity that is not in line with the pragmatism philosophy in education. This philosophy emphasizes the importance of learning practical skills that can be applied to everyday life. Debating philosophical issues is not a practical skill. It is not applicable to everyday life. What is the main idea of realism philosophy? Main idea of realism philosophy. That is, knowledge is derived from the world of experience. It gives a lot of importance to experience. Knowledge is derived from the world of experience. Realism philosophy states that knowledge is based on the world of experience, not on abstract ideas or the scientific method. Of course, you understood this. Realism philosophy states that knowledge is based on the world of experience. What is the realism philosophy's view on the human mind? The human mind is a result of experiences. Of course, experience. Everywhere you could see this word experience in realism. So the human mind is the result of experiences. Realists believe that the human mind is formed by the experiences that it has and not by anything else. Yes. What is the realism philosophy's view on the nature of truth? According to them, truth is absolute and universal. Realism. It is not personal or subjective or anything. Of course, they believe in objectivity. That is why it is much closer to idealism. So, truth is the result of logical reasoning, according to realism. truth is absolute and universal. Realists believe that truth is absolute and universal and not subjective or relative. What is the realism philosophy's view on the nature of reality? Reality is absolute and external, objective. Absolute and objective, external. Realists believe that reality is absolute and external and not a result of our own perception or an illusion. What is the realism philosophy's view on the role of the teacher? The teacher is the source of knowledge. According to realism, the teacher becomes everything, like idealism only. So the teacher is a source of knowledge. The realists believe that the teacher's role is to be a source of knowledge and not a facilitator of learning, whereas idealism takes a teacher to be the facilitator of learning, source of inspiration, everything. Whereas realists believe that the teacher's role is to be a source of knowledge, not a facilitator of learning, as idealism believes. You must understand the difference. What is the main concept of existentialism? What is the main concept of existentialism? The individual is responsible for his or her actions. Individual freedom is there, but he is responsible for his own liberation. So the individual is responsible for his or her actions. Existentialism emphasizes the importance of individual choice and accountability. It holds that each individual is responsible for their own actions and must take responsibility for the consequences of their decisions. What is the main premise of existentialism? That is, life is determined by free will. That is the main premise of existentialism. Existentialism holds that each individual has the freedom to make their own decisions and must take responsibility for their actions. It emphasizes the importance of individual choice and accountability and suggests that an individual's actions should be based on their own values and beliefs. According to existentialism, what is the most important thing for individuals to do? That is, follow their own values. That is what, because a personal choice, choice is on the individual. The individual is responsible for his life. For that reason, the individual has to follow his own values. That is what it talks about with regard to values. The most important thing for an individual to do is to follow his own values. So existentialism emphasizes the importance of the individual and suggests that each individual should make their own decisions based on their own values and beliefs. It suggests that individuals should take responsibility for their actions and strive to find their own sense of meaning in life. What is the main aim of Marxist philosophy? What is the main aim? Marxist philosophy, that is to overthrow the ruling class, the powerful class, the ruling class. Marxist philosophy is based around the idea of overthrowing the ruling class in order to bring about a more equal and just society. What is the main source of conflict in Marxist philosophy? That is capitalism. What is the main source of conflict in Marxist philosophy? That is capitalism. According to Marxism, conflict arises from the unequal distribution of resources and power which is caused by the capitalist system. What is the concept of false consciousness in Marxist philosophy? What is the concept of false consciousness in Marxist philosophy? That is, the belief that the current state of affairs is natural and desirable. There is unjust society. But laborers think that they cannot change it. This is the normal. This is natural and desirable. So simply accept their own fate. That is the idea here. So the belief that the current state of affairs is natural and desirable, this is called false consciousness according to Marxism philosophy. So false consciousness is the idea that the lower classes accept and internalize the belief that the current state of affairs is natural and desirable, thus preventing them from overthrowing the ruling class. What is the concept of dictatorship of the proletariat in Marxist philosophy? The dictatorship of the proletariat. Proletariat means workers, right? So sometimes they become powerful. It talks about the power assumed by the laborers, ordinary laborers. So what is the concept of dictatorship of the proletariat in Marxist philosophy? That is a brief period of rule by the working class. The dictatorship of the proletariat is the idea that the working class would take control for a brief period of time in order to implement the necessary changes for a more equal and just society. What is the concept of alienation in Marxist philosophy? Alienation. That is the loss of control over the means of production. See, they are doing everything, they are producing, but they are alienated from the, the production instruments. Production itself, they are alienated. They get some wages. Actually, they have done more than their wages, but then they accept and then come. That is called alienation. The loss of control over the means of production. Just because they are having the means of production, the factory, building, the necessary instruments, just because of that, the laborers are alienated. Actually, they are only producing everything. They should get more profit, but it is not done so. That is the idea here. The loss of control over the means of production, that is the concept of alienation in Marxist philosophy. Alienation is the idea that the working class is alienated from the means of production, which is seen as a source of inequality in society. What is the concept of dialectical materialism in Marxist philosophy? Dialectical materialism. The idea that the world is shaped by economic forces, yes, that is also true, but a more probable answer will be the idea that reality is composed of material forces. That is called a dialectical materialism. So the dialectical materialism in Marxist philosophy holds that reality is composed of material forces. Dialectical materialism is the idea that reality is composed of material forces and is shaped by the class struggle. What is the concept of surplus value in Marxist philosophy? Surplus value. That is the idea that the working class is producing more than they are paid. I already told you, just because they are not having the means of production, they become slaves to their own work. They work and work, they produce and produce, they yield so much of profit, but nothing is given to them. A day's wage is given to them. Actually, their work is more than their wages. That is the idea here. That is called a surplus value. The idea that the working class is producing more than they are paid. Surplus value is the idea that the capitalists are exploiting the working class by paying them less than the value of what they are producing. What is the concept of historical materialism in Marxist philosophy? Historical materialism. That is the idea that history is determined by economic forces. That is called a historical materialism. Historical materialism is the idea that history is determined by economic forces and is shaped by class struggle. What is the concept of class consciousness in Marxist philosophy? Class consciousness, that is the idea that the working class should overthrow the ruling class. That is called a class consciousness. Class consciousness is the idea that the working class should recognize their oppression and work together to overthrow the ruling class in order to create a more equal and just society. What is the concept of revolutionary praxis in Marxist philosophy? The concept of revolutionary praxis. That is the idea that the working class should engage in class struggle. The idea that the working class should engage in class struggle, that is the concept of revolutionary praxis. Revolutionary praxis is the idea that the working class should engage in class struggle in order to bring about a more equal and just society. Which of the following best explains the difference between idealist and realist approaches to knowledge in education? Which of the following best explains the difference between idealist and realist approaches to knowledge? I think it is analytical question. We have come to what you call this higher order questions. So this is one such question, analytical questions. So which of the following best explains the difference between idealist and realist approaches to knowledge in education? That is, idealists believe knowledge is subjective, whereas a realist view it as absolute and external. It is true. Difference, I think there is a ulta is given, actually it's not the right thing. Is it so? Idealists believe knowledge is subjective, whereas realists view it as absolute and external. Idealism emphasizes the mind's role, of course, that way it is true. Subjective not in the selfish manner. Subjectivity means here, according to idealism, the mind is very active. It creates its own, knowledge, based on its observation towards the, world. That is the idea. So the idealist emphasizes the mind's role in constructing knowledge, whereas the realist asserts that knowledge exists independently of human perception. So they should not do anything. They cannot do anything. It is there. You take it. That is the idea realism gives. Idealism emphasizes the mind's role in constructing knowledge. That way it is subjective. Subjective should not be taken as a selfish motive, like something more than that. Now, a teacher wants to foster independent thinking and creativity in students. Which philosophical approach would best support this goal? A teacher wants to foster independent thinking and creativity. Automatically, by this time, would have thought about pragmatism, isn't it? Only pragmatism talks about project method. Through project method, the student get experience, they develop their creativity, all these things in pragmatism. So that way, which is the philosophical approach that supports this goal, that is fostering independent thinking and creativity, that is pragmatism. Pragmatism encourages inquiry-based learning, where students explore and create knowledge through experience and problem solving. Which educational philosophy would be most effective in fostering critical consciousness among students to challenge societal norms? Which educational philosophy would be most effective in fostering critical consciousness? So that you must understand. That is Marxism, that we know. Marxism education promotes critical thinking about social inequalities, encouraging students to analyze and challenge oppressive systems. A school emphasizes strict discipline, direct instruction. Is the application question. This is the application question, higher order question. A school emphasizes strict discipline, direct instruction, and an organized curriculum based on observable facts. Which philosophy is being applied here? Which is close to this strict discipline, direct instruction, organized curriculum. Immediately you must be thinking of realism. Realism education focuses on objective knowledge, whereas idealism talks about subjective knowledge, isn't it? So, realism education focuses on objective knowledge, structure and discipline, promoting factual learning through observation. How can naturalism and pragmatism be integrated into a child-centered learning environment? Naturalism and pragmatism, how it is integrated? That is by allowing free exploration while ensuring practical problem-solving tasks. Naturalism supports its self-directed learning, while pragmatism emphasizes learning through experiences and solving real-life problems. So that is the difference here. Naturalism supports self-directed learning, while pragmatism emphasizes learning through experience and solving real-life problems. Which of the following best critiques idealism's approach to knowledge in education? Which of the following statements criticizes idealism's approach to knowledge in education? That is, it focuses too much on abstract ideas, often neglecting practical skills. So that is the criticism leveled against idealism. Idealism focuses too much on abstract ideas, often neglecting practical skills. Idealism prioritizes intellectual and moral development, but may lack practical applications in modern education. A teacher aims to help students learn through trial and error, focusing on adaptability and flexible thinking. So, adaptability and flexible thinking. Which educational philosophy aligns best with this? A teacher aims to help students learn through trial and error, experience. Project method is nothing but that. People go through various experiences, what is working, what is not working. Based on that, they formulate their theories, everything, isn't it? So that way, that is, pragmatism. So this is application question, higher order question, application question. So pragmatism emphasizes experiential learning, where students learn by testing hypotheses and refining their understanding through real-world experiences. So the pragmatism emphasizes experiential learning, where students learn by testing hypotheses and refining their understanding through real-world experiences. How does existentialism contribute to personalized learning in education? how does existentialism contribute to personalized learning in education? That is by encouraging students to develop their own unique perspectives and take responsibility for learning. By encouraging students to develop their unique perspectives and take responsibility for learning. So individual, is responsible for his own life, for his own destiny. That is the idea existentialism gives. Existentialism emphasizes personal choice, freedom, and the development of individual meaning in education. Which of the following educational practices aligns with the natural? This is also higher order question. It's an analytical question. Which of the following educational practices aligns with the naturalism out of the four? They are talking about debate, they are talking about exploring nature, they are talking about abstract discussions, standardized testing, rigid assessment methods. There are four alternatives. So which of the following aligns with the naturalism? So allowing students to explore nature and learn through direct experience, and that statement aligns with the naturalism out of these four. So the naturalism advocates for education based on the child's natural development and real world experiences. What is the potential drawback of Marxist education in modern classrooms? What is a potential drawback of Marxist education in modern classrooms? That is, it may overly politicize education because it always talks about things in a negative thing. We are not very sure. That is what they believe in it, but that is the reality of life. No transcendence, no God. People need everything. If that is the case, then Marxism will overly politicize education and neglect academic objectivity. While Marxist education fosters critical consciousness, excessive ideological influence can lead to bias in teaching. A teacher wants students to analyze the causes of economic inequality. Which philosophical framework would best guide this lesson? A teacher wants students to analyze the causes of economic inequality. Right? Which philosophical framework? Realism, Marxism, idealism, natural. Of course, very fact, very word economics talks about Marxism philosophy. So Marxism focuses on social structures and economic forces that shape inequality, making it ideal for critical discussions on wealth disparities, rich and poor, the disparity. So which statement best describes the pragmatist view of knowledge? Which statement among the four best describes the pragmatist view of knowledge? That is, knowledge emerges through human experience and problem solving. There is one sentence that B talks about human experience. Of course, pragmatism talks about human experience. So that is the right thing. So knowledge emerges through human experience and problem solving. So pragmatism sees knowledge as evolving through interaction with the environment and solving practical problems. How can realism and pragmatism complement each other? This is called a synthesis question. How can realism and pragmatism complement each other in modern education? It's a synthetic question. How it can be integrated, that is a question. But the answer, what should be the answer? By emphasizing empirical facts while encouraging hands-on learning. So this is how they can be complemented. Actually, realism talks about empirical knowledge, whereas pragmatism talks about hands-on experience. So in modern education, it should be complemented. Today we are talking about skill-oriented education. For that reason, realism and pragmatism philosophies are very relevant, with regard to skill development in the students. So that is the idea here. So realism emphasizes empirical facts, facts that can be verified, empirical facts, while encouraging hands-on learning. That is also there. Pragmatism encourages hands-on learning. So the realism provides objective knowledge, while pragmatism ensures practical application through experiential learning. Which criticism best applies to existentialist education? Among the four, which statement best applies to existentialist education? It may lack a clear structure, making learning outcomes difficult to measure. So that is the idea here. What is the criticism best applies to existentialist education? Existential education may lack clear structure, making learning outcomes difficult to measure. Existentialist education focuses on personal meaning, which may lead to challenges in standardized assessment. So that is the idea here. This is the last question, I think. A school wants to balance intellectual development with the real world problem solving. A school wants, this is the practical situation. Application oriented question connected with the philosophy. A school wants to balance intellectual development with the real world problem solving. Which combination of philosophies would be most effective out of these four? Idealism and naturalism, realism and Marxism, pragmatism and the existentialism, realism and pragmatism. We already seen that realism and pragmatism is the best, blending of philosophies that helps in modern education. Realism ensures foundational knowledge, objective reality. Objective reality is nothing but foundational, basic knowledge. While pragmatism promotes its practical application in real life situations or context. So, thank you very much, dear friends. God bless you abundantly. Kindly go through all the explanatory part for descriptive answers. You need not even go through any other thing. Suppose you are well versed with the language, simply go through the explanatory part. Just put them together. For an example, pragmatism. Whatever is given in the explanatory part, put them together. And sometimes that will be the best answer for your descriptive question. Because I have given knowledge-based, understanding-based, analytical-based, synthetic-based questions for every other philosophy. So if you take down all the explanatory parts and put them together, and you can just logically add, logically link with some ideas, with some words, then that could be the very best answer for your descriptive answer in that particular area, pragmatism or idealism or naturalism. So God bless you abundantly. Let us meet in other video lectures. You have already seen, some of you have seen my new YouTube channel, that is JesuDoss. So I request you to go through it, now also, so that you are benefiting a lot out of this. It's a new channel. Kindly subscribe so that I get boosted up to give more and more videos. God bless you abundantly.